Hey, hey, miigwech. So, bonjour everyone. Miss going on go kwang Indigenous Magizi and Dodem. So, my spirit name is Red Star, and I'm Bald Eagle Clan, and I have connections with three communities: the Tikmek, and but I was born down in Southern Ontario, in Windsor, and I was raised on a farm. I was adopted when I was 6 months old and raised on a farm outside of Windsor, and my dad taught me all about the land down there. And then I met my family from Tikmek in my late 20s, and I'm 62 now, so I've known them for longer than I haven't known them. And now I live north of Sault Ste. Marie in Gully River, on the Gully River, which is right outside my window there. And Gully River flows into Lake Superior. And I just want to say, I think I already said it, but thanks for having me today. And she mentioned Spot, and Spot is the GPS unit on the side of the water pail. And I just wanted to show you because I'm going to be mentioning it a few times today, and it updates when the water walkers are moving, carrying the water. It updates every 10 minutes on a live map online. And this map, I didn't show them this morning, but maybe it's hard to see, but this is the original map from the 2011 water walk. And you can see all the tornadoes there that I'm going to be talking about, but that's what was on the wall at Central Communications. That's what Grandma Josephine liked to call it when I was at the office at Shingwak Kinamagigimik. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'll practice up so I know how to do it now. Share screen and start broadcast. And there. Okay, so there's my sisters. I thought I'd share this since we're in the same territory here. So there's me on the left, and then there's our baby sister, Carrie Commanda from Cutler. And then there's my sister, Chief Valerie Richer. She lives in Ottawa now. And then my sister, Elizabeth Richer, and Lori Willis, my sisters. And then my niece, our niece rather, Jessica, and she lives in Rama. So maybe some of you know my family, but those are all my sisters. So the very first time I met Grandmother Josephine Bauman-Dahlman, the water walker in my book, was in 2007 at a big gathering in Garden River by Sault Ste. Marie. It was a Three Fires Confederacy gathering. And she was there sharing her stories about all of the water work that she was doing. And I was there as a volunteer cleaning outhouses and picking up garbage. And by this time, Grandma Josephine had walked around all the lakes listed on the right, Lake Superior, Michigan, Huron, Ontario. And that spring, they had just finished walking around Lake Erie. And this is the very first photo I ever took with her. And it's also in the back of the book. And I would much later learn that we're cousins. I'm her husband, Andrew. We're cousins. So that was fun to learn because she's my superhero. And okay, so I'll start the story in the year 2000 when she was at a different big gathering. And this is when she heard the prophecy shared by respected elder Eddie Ba Benton Benet. And he said, in 30 years' time, if we continue with our negligence, ounce for ounce, water's going to cost as much as gold. What are you going to do about it? So negligence, I'm sure you know what that means, but it means when you don't take care of something and the result is you've caused harm to it. So Eddie Ba was actually saying that if we don't take care of the water and continue to harm it, then it's going to be super expensive in the end. And if you think 2000, that's when he said that prophecy. He said in 30 years' time. And right now that's 22 years since he first said that prophecy. So after hearing those words, Nokomis, I looked around and she saw how we're disrespecting the water, wasting it, making it unfit for life. Something she liked to ask when she was invited to speak to communities and classrooms was this question: What would happen if we discontinue our negligence? So what would happen if we started taking better care of the water, if we stopped harming the water, if we started respecting it? That question, what are you going to do about it, stayed with her. A couple years later, she was sitting around a table visiting with some women, and the idea for water walking began to form. One of the girls said, why don't we walk around Lake Superior carrying a pail of water? They all laughed, but the idea stuck. When we walk for water, it's an Indigenous Anishinaabe-led ceremony for the water, and it's more times than not led by a grandmother. From the time the pail is lifted to the time it touches down at the end of the day, the water keeps moving, flowing nonstop like a river should. The ceremony is a special thing to do, and we do it for the water because the water is special to all life. A water walk isn't a protest, an activist action, or a social event. It's not for boasting, a photo op, or a competition. It's for the love of water and for life. And in this photo, two photos sewn together, on the left you see Grandma Josephine Ba, and then to her right, that's Grandma Sharon Day, who still walks a lot of rivers in the States. And on the right, that's in the little blue shorty with the little t-shirt and the hand drum and the face mask. That's also Grandma Sharon Day from last year's walk, one of the walks that she did last year. In 2011, the Water Walkers motto would become, I will do it for the water. People wrote to me at Central Communications in Sault Ste. Marie from all around the world, offering these words up in their own language. French, Spanish, Flemish, Dutch, Mi'kmaq, Odawa, Italian, German, Cree, Mandarin, Turkish, Welsh, and many more. They're all listed on the back of that t-shirt. In 2015, as one of the fundraisers, I designed this t-shirt and put all of the submissions on the back of it as a fundraiser. And on the map on the right, that's the 2011 Four Directions Water Walk. And all the blue dots, you can see them across the ocean too. There were a lot more than that too, were from supporters. And some of those dots were people writing in, saying Nagaj Ichige Nabionje in their own language. Saying the words is different than walking your talk, though. Grandmother Josephine Ba walked her talk. I just want to say a quick few words about this book I wrote and illustrated for Nokomis, how I fit into the water walker story. In 2011, I started coordinating her water walks. I initially volunteered to archive the 2011 water walk, knowing that this one was going to be her biggest walk yet. 4 water pails moving in from the 4 salt waters, all heading to Lake Superior at the heart of Turtle Island. To archive the water walk meant I was going to save the water walker stories so that future generations would know of the heroic efforts the Mother Earth water walkers went through to protect Nibi, to protect the water for all life on Earth. So continuing on with our story, we're at Nokomis' ceremonial lodge in Bad River, the Daewin Lodge in Wisconsin. And this is Elder Grand Chief Eddie Ba Benet, and he's the same elder that spoke of the prophecy about water costing as much as gold if we continue with our negligence. And Eddie Ba was speaking to all the people gathered that day at the lodge, and he began introducing the 2011 water walk from the 4 directions that was to take place starting that spring. Then he said, if you have any questions, you can ask a coordinator. And then he said my name. In a blink of an eye, I went from my plan of collecting stories to coordinating. I wasn't sure I had heard him right, but as soon as he stopped talking, I was surrounded by people. Maybe it was only 2 people, but it felt like 200, all wanting information about the upcoming water walk. I'd spent a lot of time in university with Josephine Ba the prior 3 years, and we did a lot of water work together, but I had never water walked before. I would not be lying if I share with you that I was scared. Sometimes I still need to deep breathe to calm myself, thinking back to 2011. But it's okay to be scared. I loved Grandma Josephine Ba and the water walkers and the water they carried. So I knew I would do everything I could to keep them safe on the road, even if I didn't know what that would involve exactly. A greater fear I had was this, and it motivates me still today. What if our future grandchildren and the trees and the birds don't have clean water to drink? Thinking about that helps me to find the courage to work through my fears. Coordinating a water walk from my desk in Sault Ste. Marie, I would scout ahead for accommodations, food, laundry facilities, more walkers, community feasts, drugstores for Band-Aids, and Tim Hortons for coffee. We used Facebook to get out the water walkers' immediate needs. 2011 was the first year I introduced Spot, the GPS unit on the water pails, seen as the orange dot on the side of the copper water pail in the book. Working in the background, I helped the water walkers the best I could, being available 24/7, sleeping with my MacBook and my phones, my landline and my cell phone. It took me pretty much the whole water walk to figure out how to best help and how to ask for help. By the end, we were a small but committed behind the scenes group of helpers to the water walkers. I received approximately 3,000 emails every 2 days, and my email crashed a few times because of the load. Nokomis completed her last big cross-country walk in 2017, and 1 month later, the Water Walker book came out. Here's a map where you can see all her initial walks that took place from 2003 to 2009. I've also added on the watersheds that drain into the Great Lakes. For 7 years, they walked for the Great Lakes and along the St. Lawrence River. She left her family and her 2 cats, Milo and Cranky, on their own comfy bed every spring to do these walks. She walked for the water. She walked for all of us people and her future great-great-grandkids. She also walked for all the plants and animals and fish too. And did you know that on a hot summer's day, one birch tree drinks 2 bathtubs full of water? I was really surprised when I learned that, so I tell everyone that. She walked for the birch trees too, hoping that they would always have what they needed to survive. Lake Superior was her favorite of the Great Lakes and the first lake that they walked around. She said it was the most powerful water. It could be very strong, very gentle, unpredictable, and strong enough to sink ships. Listening to her talk about water, it was easy to see that she had a strong relationship with it. Easy to see her love, respect, and gratitude for the water. Easy to see how much she loved all of us and all of those that depend on water, 7 generations into the future. She had so much love and determination. Traveling with her while she was still in her bunny slippers, she would always take her first sip of water in the morning before anything else, and she taught us to say to ourselves with that first sip, I love you, I respect you, I thank you, and to ask ourselves, how am I going to treat you today? Maybe that's something you can start practicing when you get up in the morning with your first sip of water. Maybe when you're brushing your teeth, you can remember, hi, water, thank you for keeping me and all the trees and animals alive. I promise today to be kind to you and treat you well. By doing this, you will come to know water better and notice all the lives in the world that depend on water. And you will start to have a strong relationship with water, like Grandma Josephine Baugh. She did a lot of walking for Nibby. Water walking can be grueling hard work when it's hot out and when there's no breeze to cool you off, or it's raining or blizzarding out. It's hard work when you have to occasionally carry the water pail and the Eagle staff because there aren't enough people to do the work. It's hard not sleeping in your own bed and sleeping very little. It's difficult getting up before the birds. And it can be lonely not petting your favorite cat after a hard, tiring day of walking the water. In this picture, you can see top left is a blizzard in Michigan, and top right is walking across the bridge between the 2 Saults at 4 a.m. Bottom right is in, I think it's in Minnesota, and then having lunch on the side of the road, and then you can see all the luggage packed into one of the water walkers vans there on the bottom left. Sometimes you miss a hot meal at the end of the day and instead live on sandwiches on the road. And sometimes you'd like to wash those sandwiches down with your favorite beverage from your favorite coffee shop. Imagine living out of a single suitcase for 3 months, which you can't find because it's in another water walker's car. But it can be beautiful too. Walking in the early dawn hours, it was peaceful. The birds and bugs would just be starting to wake up. And there's little traffic on the road that early in the morning, and the sun just starts peeking up on the horizon. Grandma Josephine Baugh and the water walkers enjoyed these times the most. And this photo was taken on her last big walk in 2017 when they were heading towards the East Coast. She also enjoyed visiting communities along the route that offered them a hot evening meal, encouraging words, a place to do their laundry, access to Wi-Fi to write home. And some communities offered to fill up their gas tanks and coolers, and many provided places for the water walkers to sleep. The generosity and love shown uplifted the water walkers and kept them from getting discouraged. So maybe you can recognize some places: Bottom, Manitoulin Island. The right is in bottom right is in Garden River. Top right, that's in I think there's some Wiki. I can't remember for sure. And then top left, that's in Kingston area. But there's more to water walking than water walking. To get her message out, to change hearts, she also had to do other work. She was interviewed for magazines and newspapers, on the radio and in movies, and did as much public speaking as her schedule could take. It was hard work, and she didn't enjoy the limelight, but she knew it was necessary, and she did it for the water. In this image, I've shared 3 films that Nokomis has appeared in. So the top right was filmed by Google Earth in Thunder Bay in Peter Cameron's grade 5-6 classroom in 2018. And the film introduces the junior water walkers. And Nokomis and I got to visit their classroom and meet the original junior water walkers, but I'll talk more about them later. Bottom right is a film called Water Journey, and it was filmed by Jeff Bear. He was at 3 of the send-offs during the 2011 water walk. He's a filmmaker from the West Coast, and he broke his film up into episodes too, and sometimes you can view it on APTN, and there's also I've seen clips that you can watch on YouTube. And the middle film, Water Life, talks about the importance of Great Lakes and the threats to water. Okay, as I previously mentioned, in 2011, we undertook the biggest walk ever. We walked from the 4 saltwaters to Lake Superior, and it took 2 difficult months to complete, all 4 directions walking at the same time. And it happened April 10th to June 11th. So these next 4 slides are from the Water Walker book, and I've added a few photos to help share the story that I drew in the book. So this is in the West, and they started in the West because it was the longest distance to walk that year. And they set off from Olympia, Washington by the Pacific Ocean, and they walked up and down the big mountain range out there. And the roads are really narrow in the mountains, so it was a bit treacherous. And there was it was blizzarding too, so was an inch of snow on the water walkers' heads and on the Eagle Staff's head while they were walking through the blizzards in the mountains. And horses always come to greet the water walkers and the water that they're carrying, so that's why I included a horse in this image. And lots of people ask me about the feet in the water that I drew on this page. And at the end of a water walking day, Nokomis and the water walkers, they'd often soak their feet in the water to cool them off, to take down any swelling from the long day of walking. And they also did this to maintain their close relationship with the water that they were walking near, introducing themselves and thanking that water. This picture here is of the Western Direction water walkers, and it's the actually from when the 4 waters were converging at Lake Superior. But this young fellow here is Mayingan Surratt, and he's from their family joined the water walk by the mountains in the west from the Yakima Nation, but his dad is actually from Garden River. So his parents that joined the water walk from Yakima were the Dorsey Lopez family, and there were 3 generations that walked the whole distance in the West. And so it was his grandma and grandpa and his stepdad and his mom and himself and his 2 brothers. So Mayingan in this photo was 7. His older brother Phoenix was 11, and his little brother was only 3 years old, and his name was Bear. And they walked the whole distance, and it was inspiring to see them do their work. Okay, so the next direction to take off on the 2011 walk was the southern direction. And it was exactly 1 year to the day after the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico that these water walkers set off from the shores of the Gulf of Mexico. And it was April 20th, and it was really hot and it was really humid. And Nokomis's knee was very sore. So every time they stopped, they would put ice packs on her knee for her to help soothe it. And as they walked along the Mississippi River, they followed the Mississippi River up to Lake Superior. But when they started in the south, the Mississippi River was flooding over, and the levees were threatening to burst down there. And it was the worst flooding in years. And the water walkers were concerned that a levee would break and they'd get washed away. And I told them not to let go of the pail because we'd find them through spot. And just north of there, they came across all these tornadoes, and it was the worst tornado event in US history. There were 360 confirmed tornadoes, and it was called a super outbreak. But the water walkers were safe. You can see that's Sharon Day on the bottom left there carrying the pail. And you can see where I wrote Mother Earth Water Walkers and the red arrow going to that little footprint. Between those two tornadoes, the one above and below, that's the distance they walked that day. And Sharon said that they walked in sunlight that day. And you can see the other arrow with the other pink ball beside it. That's where the most devastation occurred, and President Obama visited there the next day. And further north, a few days later, they were on top of Cahokia Mound, and they were singing the water song, and they almost blew off Cahokia Mound. The winds were really strong, and it was really heavy rain, but they got the song out for the water. So all of the directions experienced water in its many forms: blizzard, snow, flooding, tornadoes, and heavy rain. But in the east, there weren't any blizzards, and there weren't any tornadoes, bursting levees, or torrential rains. But there were tears, lots of tears, and many hardships. But the water walkers got up before the birds every morning and did their work for the water. Every one of them was determined and committed to Nibi and future generations. This top right photo here is of Clan Mother Joan Ba Dana. Grandma Josephine Ba was really close to her, and this was at the send-off. And the bottom photo is of the picture rocks in Maine. And that's the actual send-off location. The people in that photograph are, on the left is Madeline Hutchins. She's the one who had the dream about the Four Directions Water Walk. And in the center is Malvina Flamon, and that's Josephine Ba's sister. And she showed up for every walk when Nokomis needed help. And then on the right is Dallas Abatong, Nokomis's lodge daughter, and one of her helpers. The next and last direction to take off was the northern direction. And it took the water walkers a bit to get up to Churchill, up to Hudson Bay, because they had to take a train up there, but the train tracks were flooded out. So then they had to be rescued and flown in the rest of the way. Originally, Nokomis wanted to dog sled down from Churchill to Winnipeg, but the elders up there said that at that time of the year, it was too dangerous to do that. So they had to take the train back down to Winnipeg. And when they got to Winnipeg, that's where they started walking with the pail of water to meet up with the other water walkers in at Lake Superior, where they would converge with the other water vessels. So here's a map of the four directions, and they all converged at Lake Superior on June 11th, 2011. And like I mentioned, it took 2 months and millions of footprints laid across Turtle Island to get there. And every step was a prayer for the water. Here's the eastern direction arriving at the lodge at Lake Superior. And here's the west, south, and northern directions coming in to meet the eastern direction. And here the four salt waters are coming together: the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic Ocean, and Hudson Bay. So there were a lot of smaller walks for local lakes and rivers between the big 2011 Four Directions Water Walk and the next big water walk that happened in 2015 that was called the Sacred Water Walk. And that water walk in 2015 began in Matane, Quebec on the East Coast. And again, they walked to the lodge in Bad River, Wisconsin on Lake Superior. 2017 was Grandma Josephine Ba's final cross-country walk, and it was called For the Earth and Water. And that's her husband, Andrew, on the left, carrying the eagle staff. And I think I mentioned he's my cousin. And this walk started in at Spirit Mountain in Duluth, Minnesota. And their final touchdown was Matane, Quebec, again on the East Coast. And on this journey, there were paddlers that followed them, the majority away too, paddling alongside them as they walked. And less than a month after her final big walk, the Water Walker book was released. And Nokomis Sneakers now took her to classrooms where she inspired hundreds of kids. And this is at the book launch was in Toronto because that's where the publisher is. And this was at a couple of the libraries we got to visit. And here's another big library we got to visit in Toronto when we were there. And I mentioned the junior water walkers earlier. I'm not sure, maybe some of you are junior water walkers or maybe you've heard of them, but she asked everyone she met, what are you going to do about it? Knowing that it's everyone's responsibility to respect Nibby and knowing that we all have unique gifts that we can use to protect Nibby. And youth are stepping up to answer her question. And one collective we support is called the Junior Water Walkers. And the Junior Water Walkers bring kids together from around the world, sharing a common connection and goal. And their 4 pillars are connect, reflect, respect, and protect. And you can see their website up there on the header. And Nokomis said, we're all born of water. We're all connected with water. We're all related in that way. Even though we're not related by blood, we're related by water. So water is very precious to us. And I'm really, really proud of the work that the junior water walkers around the world are doing. They're forming relationships and trust with the water that's nearest them. And at last count, there were over 250 classrooms or schools with junior water walkers. And here's some of the points around the world where they can be found. And your classrooms are invited to become junior water walkers too. So just recently, the junior water walkers in Thunder Bay started mailing out water boxes to classes around the world that had registered for them. And so the water boxes, I'll tell you a bit about them. They were handcrafted from local white cedar, and the students at Pope John Paul Senior Elementary School in Thunder Bay, under the direction of Peter Cameron, constructed and stained the boxes in their design technology classes. And during their junior water walker club meetings, they worked on them also. And in each box will be a copy of the Water Walker book and a journal that the students handcrafted in their life skills class, and they're made from recycled paper. And also, when they knew what school, the 60 schools were chosen to have a box mailed to them, and the students would write a personalized letter. And I saw some of them, they even drew inside of these journals that are going to go inside the boxes. And they also included the foreign medicines to go in the box. And I think that's a stone from Lake Superior they're putting, but they said they were going to put other little surprises in the box too before they mailed them out. So the water boxes were sent free of charge to the 60 junior water walker classes around the Great Lakes, across North America and throughout the world, who had expressed interest in receiving one. And there were over 200 classes that were signed up, and the Junior Water Walkers Club had to get together and choose 60 because they only had enough resources to make 60 boxes this year. So the classes will become water box keepers for the school year. then in the journal, they'll write what they've learned or done for the water. And they'll also in the box put, it'll be like a time capsule of sorts, and they'll put maybe a couple things that they've learned about the water inside the water box. And then at the end, they'll hand their box off to another class who will become junior water walkers and water box keepers. And all of this movement will be tracked on Google Earth as the boxes move throughout the world. And so everyone will essentially be joining together to do something for the water. And this is just really, I don't know, it's really inspiring to see all the kids working so hard for the water like this. And teacher Peter Cameron, he's invited me to meet virtually with all the water classrooms that are going to have water boxes, and I'm really excited about it. So many of you may know that grandmother Josephine Baugh passed away in early 2019, and she asked all of us to continue with our work, to keep going. And so we keep walking. This is Sharon Day. She has a little turquoise t-shirt on with her little orange hat, and she's the lead walker. She walks a lot of rivers in the United States every year. She hasn't stopped walking since she led the southern direction during the 2011 walk, and she walks 3 to 7 rivers every year in the States. And last year, even during lockdown, they were really safe about it, but they did 2 bigger water walks last year. And this one, they walked from Lake Superior to the Minnesota, North Dakota border. And this is part of my work. Every evening, I post a picture of the water walkers, and I post how far they walked that day, where they touched up, where they touched down, and how many footsteps and prayers they did for Nibby that day. And after that water walk, they walked the Otter Tail River. And you can see these are all their touchdown images of all the walkers who walked on the 4 different days for this river. And because it's in the States, it's in miles. So they walked almost 122 miles and 270,419 footsteps and prayers for Nibby for the Otter Tail River. And this year, if you wanted to follow along, it's nibbywalk.org is Grandma Sharon's website. And this year she's going to be leading youth walking, and they're going to be walking the length of the Mississippi River. So I think that's really going to be very special, training the youth how to do this work. And also last year, I spotted for the Saskatchewan River Water Walkers, and that walk went from July 11th to August 15th. And I'm not sure if any of you remember, but there were a lot of fires out west last year. So it made it really tough. So they had to deal with a pandemic. So any new water walkers that came had to be tested. So there were all those protocols, plus the fires and the heat, and walking through all the smoke was really hard, especially on the ones who had asthma. And it was also really tough because a lot of these walkers had walked with Grandma Josephine Baugh before, and this was their first water walk. So there were a lot of growing pains learning how to walk without Nokomis, but they did it, and they made it to their destination, and there were lots of songs and prayers for the water. And they're going to be doing it 3 more years because they made a 4-year commitment to the Saskatchewan River. So they're already planning, doing Zoom meetings and stuff, planning their for this year's walk. And there's one more water walk that I just heard about yesterday. Grandmother Doreen Bernard, she's on the East Coast. There was a movie she was in too, about the water in the East. I can't remember the name of it. It was on Netflix though. But anyways, she is going to be walking for the Bay of Fundy, and that water walk starts on May 24th this year. And they're looking for a camper van because there's not a lot of places to stay. Well, it's been a long time since I've been there, but it just makes it easier when there's a camper van for the walkers when they're far away from home. So I'm going to start wrapping up now. This is Nokomis, the water walker. At the age many people retire, she began her work in earnest for the water. Nokomis started walking when she was 60 years old when 4 of them set off around Lake Superior in 2003. In 2017, at 74 years of age and living with Parkinson's, she and the courageous Mother Earth water walkers set off on a journey that took them halfway across Turtle Island. She said over 1,000 people joined them on this walk for Nibe. She knew who water was and had a very close relationship with water. We're all connected by water. We people are about 75% water. We drink water, excrete water. We're all born of water. That water goes back to the earth and is taken up by the trees, bears, and berries. We're all responsible for the health of each other and every living thing on earth because we're all responsible for the health of Nibe. Nokomis love Nibe and Nibe love Nokomis. We'll finish where she began with a question that needs answering. What are you going to do about it? So, Igwitch for your good listening, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. If I stop sharing, stop.
Miigwech. That was amazing. I'm so amazed at Grandma Josephine Ba. Just at the age and her health, what she was going through and what she's been able to accomplish. I just like, it's just amazing. Yeah, if anybody does have any questions, I know I have some if nobody else wants to ask questions.
Are there junior water walkers out there or anyone walked with the water out there? Because I know water walkers have walked through our territory quite a bit.
I know there's a couple, I think, Tikmikshing members in Mr. Lefebvre's class, but Tasha Beads, who, yeah, so she was a former professor at University of Sudbury there. And so she did the Junction Creek water walk.
Yeah,
and she is, I seen her with the kokum scarf.
Yeah, and as soon as she finished that walk, she drove out west and started the Saskatchewan River Walk. She was exhausted before she started. So water walkers are,
yeah, that was amazing.
They're intense.
Yeah, so we did have some students I know and some young ones. We did, I joined up for that one and we walked through town and all the way down 55. And then we got up the next morning and I know that they completed their walk at the Spanish residential school site. And that was pretty powerful. And then I remember Tasha, she was going out to Saskatchewan and then I even heard they encountered some bears or that they kept their distance and stuff. So I'm like, oh my goodness.
The bears, because of the fires, the bears were coming down out of the mountains and they were hungry. They were really skinny. So they were going to where people were camping. Yeah, it was, there were a lot of bears.
I heard every encounter was good though, and they were safe. And
yeah, that's true.
And they prayed for that too. That was, I'm reflecting upon that you said it's been 22 years and the 30-year prophecy. And I'm just like, wow, like we're coming up, lots of work to do. Is it possible to still get a shirt?
Actually, they're still on. I did this one. This is for the 2017 walk, but they're all still on the site, but I haven't updated it in a while. So like I was trying to find it. We get them from, I can't even remember the name of the company now, but you buy it on there and they ship it out for us. It's in the States.
Oh, awesome.
But they're still on there. They're just hard to find. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Although the white shirt with the water walker on the front, that one's there. And then this one too. The one with all the words on the back, yeah. But yeah, it's hard to find. I could try and find the link for you.
Yeah. So in our territory here, I know we have like Junction Creek, that we have the Long Lake and the former gold mine that was here, and Arsenic. in the water, like there are, and thinking about like Simon Lake that's right near the Tikmikshing community and the algae that grows there. And there's, you know, there's lots of signs, and, you know, for us to start paying attention for sure. And
Mhm.
what kind of action can we take at this point?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm really, I'm doing a lot of reflection because I know springtime is coming and the sap is going to start flowing. And what you said there, you said 2 bathtubs every day for a birch tree.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, right? That's why you see birch trees by the water a lot, right? But I never thought about that. Like on a hot day, you know, just not on an average, but on a hot day, 2 bathtubs.
That's incredible.
So like, and they drink fresh water. Oh, and do we have time? I want to share one more thing. Should have did this morning too. So if you imagine all the water in the world is in this pail, right? But 98% of it is salt water. So the amount of fresh water that we have in the world out of all the water in the world is only this much. So there's much fresh water in the world, but most of this water is trapped up in the atmosphere, frozen on, you know, on top of mountains, or frozen in glaciers, or so far down on the earth we can't get to it. What we do have access to in fresh water out of this small amount, out of the whole pail, is this amount out of this whole pail. This is what we have access to. So those 2 bathtubs of water, all the water that we drink, waste, you know, the water that the animals drink and the birds and the fish and everything, you know, it comes from this. And a lot of it that we have access to only comes from this amount out of this whole pail. So it's good to think about that, because we live on the Great Lakes, right? We're really fortunate, and we think, unless you have a drinking water problem. But yeah, so I like sharing that with people because it puts it into, it makes you think more about it, because we think we have so much water, and it's like, well, no.
And especially what you said about that, you know, the water recycles itself. We don't get new water, you know, it's been here. The water just goes through its cycle and it comes back to us. So what we do and how we take care of it, you know, like
Yeah,
that.
there's an African proverb that I saw quite a few years ago, and it said, you can't clean dirty water. And I was like, oh, because we use water to clean everything, right? And yeah, so that made me think about that too.
Yeah.
And another student mentioned to me once, well, there's tons of salt water. We can take the salt out of the water, right? And you can, but that's so expensive. Like it uses so much to do that, right? When if we just took care of what we had. So we just have to, you know, our 4 laws are respect, 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 respect. We just have to start practicing that, right? So.
Gosh. Are there any questions at all? Now's the time. I know we're just coming up on 2 o'clock here. So if there's not any pertinent questions that people want to ask, I could sit and talk to you for another hour, but I'm going to be respectful of people's time. And yeah, so some good resources there: Water Life, Water Journey, Great Lakes and the Water Walker documentaries. We have nibewalk.org, motherearthwaterwalk.com, the junior water walkers to go check out. And that's something that maybe we could look at too here with the students. That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
even if you don't have a water box, you can still, all the steps are on the website, and you can put your pin on the mat too, because it encourages other people. Yeah.
So then you'll have your options of different books you can access. And where can people find these books? You said Good Minds.
Yeah, Good Minds, and probably maybe even the local bookstores. And I hate saying Chapters and Amazon because it's better to support local, like smaller businesses.
Support local if you
yeah,
can.
yeah. And yeah, Good Minds. And then this one,
Yeah.
I think I've only seen it on Amazon. Well, like Good Minds, but yeah, the publisher is from Quebec. It's a different publisher, the French version from the other books. But
Miigwech. Well, thank you so much for joining us again for a second session here, afternoon session, and it's been awesome. And yeah, I'm so glad to have got to know you better.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Miigwech.
Okay.
Oh, there's
A face.
everyone give woo, you can unmute yourselves. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for having me.